and welcome to Moving Through Menopause. I'm excited to have Dr. Joshua Rosenthal here with me this afternoon. Joshua is a board-certified physician and a sleep specialist. So welcome, Dr. Joshua. It's lovely to see you today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You're very welcome. And so we are talking about the kinds of issues that might come to visit us during this time of menopause. And I know that one that actually I kind of struggled with on and off through the whole of my life, but it really came back with a vengeance during the perimenopause period, and that was insomnia and difficulty maintaining sleep. I could drop off at the drop of a hat because I was so tired. However, staying asleep, oh my gosh, that was so hard.
Yeah, well, menopause is one of those things that obviously it's not a single entity. There's the perimenopause, the buildup. And, if you ever notice, there are women who go through menopause swimmingly and have no issues, and women who really struggle.
Yeah.
And the best way I would describe the difference between those two women are really the connectedness of their body clock, their circadian rhythms, and how they manage the flow of all these changing hormones. Because remember, your body has a rhythm in a 24-hour period of, cortisol, melatonin, all your hormones, thyroid, growth hormone, estrogen. They all have, up and down periods. And menopause is kind of like the stuttering of that, secretion from the female sex gland, right? So when they stutter really matters. If they're stuttering a lot at night, you may be having terrible hot flashes and insomnia. If they're stuttering during the day, it may just be daytime symptoms. If you can have that be more balanced, and again, all these hormones interconnect. So if your thyroid hormone is very stuttery by nature, then that's going to interact also with the female hormone side. And so the crosstalk. And so I believe that the women who go through menopause naturally live a lifestyle that is more connected to, the beneficial type of circadian rhythm that we would expect to have for good health. And unfortunately, as I talk about in most of venues I'm at, this is all, light-based. Sleep and circadian rhythms are impacted by the type of light you're exposed to. Like right now, I have light shining on me. And I happen to know the details of that light because I'm very concerned with that stuff. But most people, they think that the light that's shining on me right now is the same as the light that may be shining on you. And that is a belief that could cost you your health, because the frequencies of light, even just stepping out in the sunlight hitting me is very different from this light, which is very different from the light you have. Understanding of light becomes really important to get your rhythms right.
So yeah, understanding light to get the rhythms right. That rhymes. Did you know?
Hey, we're poets.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so do you know what? I'm going to take you back a step, because what you said to me was the women who go through swimmingly might be more in tune with, doing things healthily, we'll say, just for want of a better word. But I'll tell you what, I was doing everything I thought I possibly could to facilitate this, process naturally, with movement, with nutrition, the light management, that daytime, nighttime relationship where you get up at the same time every day, you go to bed at the same time every day, eat more or less at the same time all the time, really trying to manage those rhythms that I am, aware of are so very, very important. And yet still this whole thing was not working.
Well, I'll tell you this, in my studies and understanding the physics of wellness, it is very complicated. It is easy to miss some of the details that really matter. And this is how you can have a very cursory understanding of what someone said from like a podcast like this, go home and think, okay, I heard Dr. Rosenthal say that blue light is bad. And so I'm going to wear blue light blocking glasses everywhere I go to avoid the blue light. And that's not what I said, of course. But so everything has a context, and while I'll talk about how blue light can be bad, there's blue light in the sun, and we use blue light for growth processes and our natural biologic processes every day. But it's at the right time, and it's in conjunction with other parts of the light spectrum that exist at the same time. So it's they say the same keys hold, the same key opens heaven and hell. The idea, it's really balanced. Too much of anything, too little of anything. It's the Goldilocks effect, and light is very much like that. And so when people say, "Oh, well, I'm wearing blue blocking glasses and I'm not getting the effect that I heard, you speak of," well, that's a problem when the opticians will sell you blue blocking glasses that are a clear coating that block a very narrow band of the blue frequencies that cause the problem. So they'll say, well, I bought blue blocking glasses. So again, here's where the details matter. And you thought you did something right by purchasing glasses that block blue light, but do you know which frequencies should be blocked? Do you know whether the lens you're purchasing is doing what it says it does, right? And again, as we spoke earlier, marketing and trends, become the gray zone. The marketers say, oh, these are blue blocking glasses, come buy these. And they don't understand the health benefits or the physics or how it works. And so they just market to you, and they'll say whatever they can. They'll say, yeah, blue light blocking glasses are great. They'll help you with your hormones, and they'll do everything right, and you'll be better. And so you buy them. And then when you don't get the result, you don't realize that they had a flaw in their thinking, in their design, or their product. So I wish the details didn't matter. So I could just tell somebody, do A, B, and C, and then it would all work. But this is, you have to overhaul every little detail in your life because you can miss them. I've missed some details even in my own life. And then when I went back and checked, I said, wow, how did I not realize that was much worse than I would have expected? So, and again, not everybody has the type of, meters and tools and things to check all this stuff. So you have to do your best. But what I find is I try to bring people step by step with baby steps. So the first thing you do is take a very cursory, like many people do, oh, I'm going to buy these glasses. Well, choose the appropriate type of glasses and start with a very basic foundation. When the sun goes down, you were designed to not have any blue light. And then you just start there. Now, is that enough? No, of course it's not enough. That's what I'm saying. But you start there, and then you may get a little headway, and then you can slowly add more and more pieces to the puzzle. But I wish there was just a formula. It's so complicated in your context, where you work, where you live, all the choices that are around you. It's a lot of information.
I suppose for me, the thing that I really want people to be able to understand is how it works. Why, the why,
Right.
Light is a spectrum. We did this in school. We shone light through a pyramid, if you remember, and then it split up into the rainbow, and it was this miraculous thing, and I mean, that's what a rainbow is, isn't it? The light breaking up. So the spectrum of light, the different colors that exist within it, speak differently to the brain, and that light enters through the eyes. But I've also heard you speak about the fact that we have photoreceptors in the skin, and and other places that you wouldn't necessarily think of. Although, having said that, you get a suntan, so there's something going on there.
Of course.
So let's really break this down for people to understand how light impacts on hormone secretion, for one, and the key hormones that might be impacted by light.
Okay, that's a very impressive task, but I'm going to do my best to make it accessible to the listeners. So, as you said, all these colors of the rainbow, and I think in nutrition we understand to eat the rainbow of colors, but yet we don't understand that in health we should be eating the rainbow of light. Okay, and I don't mean physically eating, but being exposed to the rainbow of light. And so, artificial light has small bits and pieces of the spectrum. And unfortunately, just like if you eat only one type of food, even though you could think that food might be healthy, if all you eat is that one type of food, it's probably not going to be good for you. You need a better balance. So the way it works is the light that shines on your skin, on your eyes, sets the rhythm of the cells that it touches. And your clock system has a master clock in your brain that's wired directly to your eyes, which is why the first place I ever start with someone is the eyes, because we have to get the master clock in the head. That's kind of, when your computer checks to, you turn it on and it knows that it's daylight savings times, or if the time has changed, it knows to look out to a server and check what the master time is, and then it resyncs. That's exactly what your body does in every cell. It looks to see, well, what does the brain say? Okay, I know what time it is. Does the brain agree? Okay, let's work. Because if their time is off, it's going to want to sync to the brain clock, the master clock. So how do you get the master clock right? Well, the light goes through the eye, and then it gets wired to that master clock. That then has wiring that goes to your hypothalamus and your pituitary, and that's your compound pharmacy in your brain. That is every hormone that you really want to talk about. So that's your thyroid hormone. Okay, that's stress hormones. Okay, so your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Okay, the HPA axis, or the HPT axis, meaning it connects with the thyroid. Okay, that generates almost all the chemical signals that turn on the hormones. And again, people think of thyroid hormone, for instance, will think I take a dose of thyroid hormone. I take 100 micrograms a day. And so we think of it as 100 micrograms all day long, constant, steady stream. No, that's not how it works, right? First of all, even when you take a pill, there's a spike and then there's a slow drop off. If you look at if we measure in the blood, this stuff happens with a rhythm as well. There's a secretion and a slow drop off. Now, sometimes there's other little secretions throughout the day. And again, that's all coordinated. It's all coupled and intentional. It's not, random that you make, growth hormone at a certain time or testosterone at a certain time. These things are made very intentionally at certain times because they match the function of what you need to do. In other words, if you eat a meal, do you want acid secretion to happen 3 hours from now, or do you want it to happen when the food is in your stomach? And so our hormones connect to all these things. A perfect example, just staying with food, is when we eat a meal and we get that glucose load, our body has to secrete insulin to tell us to put that glucose to work in the cells. Most people, I don't think, realize that the time of day that you eat affects how much insulin secretion a normal person has. So if I eat in the morning versus in the evening, my insulin secretion is different for the exact same meal. And that seems counterintuitive. You go, well, wait a second, doesn't the body just, no, it has a time. It cares what time it is for every function. So after the light goes in the eye, it sends a signal down to the pituitary gland, which secretes all these hormones and releasing factors to interact with the body. And this happens not just once a day, right? This is a constant process. So your clock is constantly interacting with the environment. And so that's another problem, is that we just think, well, if you wind your watch in the morning, it's good all day. But you're constantly interacting with the light. And I don't think people realize also that the light outside, right now it's light. It's, it's 9 in the morning, 9:30 in the morning here in New York. This light will be different in an hour from now, in 4 hours from now. Those colors of the rainbow, the ratios change. They change from sunrise to sunset. And nature put receptors in your body to detect that. Now, I'll go a little geeky on the science now, but melanopsin is the receptor that's found in our eye, in our skin, in our blood vessels, in our fat, and it helps us tell time using blue light. Now, when all you're exposed to is artificial blue light, like we are right now, that signal is a very specific signal to the cells, and it tells them something, okay? We also use ultraviolet light through a photoreceptor called neuropsin. And ultraviolet light has also ratios that change. Obviously, when the sun rises, there's no ultraviolet light. It peaks during midday. We have ultraviolet A and B. Right now we're going to be heading towards, ultraviolet B winter in a lot of the northern hemisphere. Yes, start frowning and crying because that's really important for your health. But so your body uses those ratios to also fine tune the time even further, because that changes on a seasonal, annual basis. So whereas blue light tells you the photo period of a day, those UV light informations tell you what season it is. So when it's winter, my body knows it's winter. Why? Because there's no UVB whatsoever. That's a much stronger, higher energy light even than UVA. And so UVA is present, but no UVB. And even the ratios of UVA are different. So you use all this information to tell time without having a clock on your wrist. It's in every cell and every gene in your body. This should really drive the point home. Every gene in your body, because everybody's concerned about genes and genetics, and it's really a wash because it's epigenetics. But every gene in your body has what we call a pre-transcriptional clock gene. So let me translate that. Before it does the thing that it's supposed to do, whatever the gene is, if the gene is supposed to make a protein or an enzyme to help you digest or whatever, before it makes the protein, it looks to see what time it is. Pre-transcriptional means before it does its job, it looks at the time. And so time really matters now, because now you realize before you can do anything, you have to ask, what time is it? And if your cell, and this is where it's confusing, every cell has its own little clock too. Every organ has its own clock, and it's all synced and coupled. And then you have the master clock. You really have to get all these things right. And so this is why the details matter. Just wearing blue blocking glasses can be one thing, but if you send a light signal artificially to your skin, you're sending a different signal. If you're eating a banana and tons of fruit in the winter, which have high energy UV light encoded into the electrons, so that signal says, hey, it's summer. So in the winter, you go to this supermarket and you eat that banana from Chile. Well, guess what? In the UK, there's no high energy UV light present. So now in your gut, you have a light signal that does not match the light signal of your environment. And then you shine all this UV, this blue light, artificial blue light, which also says, hey, it's summer, but summer should have high energy UV light. And it turns out that your body's mitochondria utilize that strong high energy UV light to process and digest the electrons and turn it into energy from the banana. So it's all coupled. So when you eat a banana without the strong UV light, your mitochondria don't have the right environment to create energy properly, and you make what's called free radicals, and that's code word for inflammation. Reactive oxygen species, free radicals, these are code word for inflammation. And we should know, hopefully, that inflammation is the root of all disease. So basically, eating a banana, which people would think, oh, it's a fruit, it's healthy, is almost akin to eating a cheesecake. Right? So you say, well, how could that be? Well, because you don't have the right signal to digest it. And so now, again, that changes. Maybe you live on the equator. So now eating banana in the winter is okay. And bananas grow in your local environment. And that's, this idea of eat local is actually a carbon footprint thing and, a save the world thing. But it's actually a physics idea. You're designed to interact with your local environment. That's what epigenetics means, that your environment dictates how your body works. And so if bananas don't grow in your location, you probably shouldn't be eating them. Sorry.
I love bananas. Bananas is one of my most favorite things, and I've never seen a banana tree
Right.
not with actual bananas anyway.
So the answer there for you to mitigate that is you really shouldn't eat bananas in the fall and the winter. In the spring and the summer, it's less of a problem because at least you have the energy of light to couple with it. It may not be coupled to your environment properly, but at least you're using some of the information I just gave in a beneficial way.
Okay, so we've talked about the clock and how that really influences every cell in the body, which is just mind-blowing. So how, and that sleep is programmed into that clock. We should be sleeping in those hours between dusk and dawn. That's, ideally when we should be sleeping. But how does light help us with that?
Well, so the best way to give this story of how light and your sleep are connected is to use melatonin. And melatonin people think of as a sleep hormone, but it's way more than that. And the anti-cancer benefits, it controls repair of your mitochondria, which is a whole nother talk. But there's a ton of anti-inflammatory, antioxidant benefits from melatonin. But if you just think of it on the most basic level, it's this hormone of sleep. So the first problem is it's not created at night. It's created in the morning. And that's those frequencies found in the morning sun at sunrise that help to program information that helps you to start creating melatonin. So the first thing that people should know is that melatonin starts in the morning. So if you're not getting your morning right and getting some real sun frequencies to help program your clocks and such, then you're not going to get this story right. But let's assume you're doing that, but you live a typical life in a box with artificial everything. Once the sun goes down, technically in nature, there's no blue light. So now the absence of blue light is required to make melatonin. Blue light is the strongest frequency spectrum to suppress melatonin. And so it takes about 4 hours without blue light to make melatonin. So now if you think about, well, when do I go to sleep? What time, doctor? I should go to bed at 11 o'clock every night or 10:30 every. No, it depends, right? Because guess what? In the winter, when the sun goes down earlier, after 4 hours of darkness, not to say that you're going to go to sleep at 4 hours, but your melatonin is rising. There should be creating some sleep. Okay. And in the summertime, when it's sunny out until, 8, 9, and depending upon where you are, o'clock at night, obviously you're not going to be tired at such an early hour. And you obviously should be staying up later. So you can see that there's a connection there. And this, again, remember, this all connects to, I'll use the female hormone. So melatonin, one of the other important qualities is it's what's called an aromatase inhibitor. That's a fancy medical enzyme term. It means it helps control estrogen. So what do we know about estrogen? Well, we know high estrogen is bad, okay? And so when we talk about, when I say it like that, it just sounds like your overall level being high. But remember, there's a rhythm, and too much at the wrong time. So it doesn't have to be super excessive. A little pulse when you shouldn't have it, greater than normal in what the cells expect, can be a high level. And again, this is that nonlinear thinking, which we all think very linear. Oh, if I have high estrogen, it's high all day. No, it could be just high in the morning or just high at night or just high. So melatonin decreases estrogen. And we know that high estrogen levels are associated with breast cancer. So here's a perfect connection. And there's lots of studies on blue light, artificial light, and breast cancer, that if someone is listening and says they have breast cancer and they had no idea that artificial light at night is associated with breast cancer, that should be a pretty big problem. Because if you continue after having a breast cancer diagnosis, regardless of what treatment you pursue, to expose yourself to the same, and I say toxin because light can be toxic if it's used incorrectly, right? If you expose yourself to the same toxic environment, what are the odds that you're going to get better really? Or that you're not going to have a recurrence or not have another or a new problem also caused by the artificial light. So, there were studies showing that blue light protection at night makes tamoxifen therapy work better for breast cancer. Oh. Okay, there's studies showing that just the street lamps, being LED street lamps outside of your bedroom, is associated with breast cancer in women. That was a study out of Harvard. So I laugh because if the lights outside of your house can cause cancer in you, how about the lights inside your house? How about the phone that you're staring at 10 o'clock at night? Could that be related? There was just a paper this past year, and I've known this all along intuitively, but artificial light at night was associated with thyroid cancer, no surprise. And I'm sure it's associated with the production of thyroid nodules and other thyroid condition as well. I haven't seen that evidence yet, but I believe eventually that will probably come out as well. So when you understand how light interacts, then you start to understand, I have to now be on a light hygiene protocol. I have to start learning about this, and I have to take control of my light hygiene. It's really no different than taking control of your nutrition. If you eat McDonald's and Burger King every day, we would very clearly as a society say, well, you need to do better for yourself. And I say the same thing. If you sit in front of screens with no protection, with artificial light and artificial light above your head, whether it's high hats or fluorescent lights, whatever, at work, all the screens that if you don't take any control over that, then that's like the equivalent of eating Burger King and McDonald's every day. And so I don't see a surprise when someone has a problem, when they get sick. And so, I think this, the past year or so has taught us, wow, there's so many people getting sick that we didn't expect. But if you really boil down their lifestyle, you'll find out that they lived a lifestyle without the sun and the natural frequencies and with tons of artificial frequencies. And so sleep is when you program your immune system. So we all would like to have a healthy immune system right about now. We know that vitamin D levels are associated with fighting infections. The higher your vitamin D level naturally, the less likely are you to get really, serious illness with. Okay, that also correlates with cancer. In breast cancer studies, high vitamin D levels are associated with very low incidence of getting breast cancer, almost none. So here we go. The light that you're exposed to really matters. And I wish it wasn't complicated, but you have to, at least you can see a lot of the light. You may not know what it is, but anytime light is shining on you, start thinking, what kind of bulb is that? What does that mean for me? And that's how you can start. It's awareness is curative. I mean, I'd love to be able to give a 5-hour discourse on light and teach you everything, and your mind would be swirling, and you'd be dizzy, and you'd say, I can't remember any of that. And that's how it is. I understand that. But start where you are. Pay attention to the types of light that you're exposed to, and then you can build from there. Okay, now how can I shut the light off? I mean, it's as simple as that. You can shut lights off. So you've decreased the toxic. So that's like instead of eating Burger King 3 times a day, you're only eating it once a day. That's better. It's still better. It's not great. It's better. And you can keep climbing. So just start with paying attention to the light, and the rest can start to fall into place.
Yeah, I absolutely. I kind of came from a background where I was actually quite a technophobe, and I was very,
not anymore, but me too.
Well, no, I was very vigilant, shall we say, with my children, not wanting them to be in front of technology all the time, and it was never about the light. But it obviously had that beneficial consequence. But, like you say, COVID has thrown us into this place where children are in front of devices. And I've taken my business online, and I have never been in front of a screen so much as I have in the last 12 months. And I do feel the ramifications of that. So I think, I'm still a novice in terms of how to manage the inputs that I'm getting from the screens. Never mind the light bulbs in the house, and I know, like you're a prescription glasses wearer, like I am, and I already have a very expensive prescription, which, and so adding the goggles that you can wear. I know you can wear goggles over the top, but actually, I really feel that would be a not ideal. So perhaps, I'm going to have to go down that route of having something embedded into the lens itself. But can you, screen covers, do they work?
So let me give you a quick primer on, and I have some of the different choices and devices I've used and tools that I've used on my website. So you can, leave a link at
I will.
quantumsleep.net, and there's also more information. But so the first thing is we want to block the eyes first, right? Because I could change all the lights in my house, all the light bulbs in my house. That's a lot of work. Or I could change my glasses. That's very simple. I just change one thing and I get a benefit across the board. Now, again, it's not changing the light on my skin, but I'm starting to get my master clock in gear. And so that's a foundational maneuver. So that, I do recommend starting with the eyes and the glasses. So that can be as simple as a $10 pair of glasses that fit over any prescription glasses. That's why I recommend those. Now, those are very antisocial and socially unacceptable. This is not something you want to be seen in, for sure, 100%. But it's something you can do at home. Most of the time we are at home at night when we're exposed to all this stuff. And now every screen that we look at, we're protecting our eyes. Moving forward, we can start to change the source. So light bulbs can be changed from LED to incandescent. Again, that's not necessarily a perfect solution. Any sort of little night light type bulbs that we want, if we want to go to the bathroom late at night, or, can be changed to red light, which has a very low level of melatonin suppression. So little small red LED night lights, they exist on Amazon and such, and you can get something like that, so that now, you want to walk into the bathroom at night, you don't want to turn on the light and get all these frequencies that we're not, designed to be exposed to. So that's another little hack. There are different screen protectors for phones. I have a yellow screen protector over mine that cuts some of the daytime frequencies of blue light. So this is where it gets a little dicey, is that there's a daytime artificial blue light kind of protection scheme, and there's a nighttime artificial blue light protection scheme. And why are those different? Because you're designed to be exposed to blue light during the day. So to completely block all blue light all time is not the answer either.
Oh, yeah.
So that's going to uncouple your circadian rhythm too. But in most professions, you're in a business office building where you don't have a lot of control, and the blue light is often, 3 to 4 times the percentage of what you would expect. So having like these glasses here have about 40% blue light protection. And you can't really tell, they're not that differently colored. It's more like a champagne-ish color to the tint, which some people just tint their glasses anyway. I remember that was a thing back in the day. And so it just cuts down a little bit. But the idea is when I'm outside, I am going to get the light directly because I don't want to block those frequencies. So that's where it gets confusing. So the daytime is always the hardest story, which is why I start at night. Because again, night, we want to make melatonin. That's the biggest bang for our buck. Once we get that right, okay, we're going to move towards day. And the nighttime glasses are amber or orange colored. There is no clear lens that's going to get this done for you. It does not block enough of the frequencies of blue light that are the highest. And again, there's always another level. There are red, on my site, I'll have a picture of red laser goggles that are plastic and not that expensive. And they block all the blue, all the green, okay? They're very hard to work with because you're living in a red monochrome world. But even green light blocks melatonin, less so than blue light. Even red light a little bit has, but red has the least. So again, it gets dicey to maneuver through this, and that's why you got to start somewhere. But, if somebody started just by buying amber-colored goggles to put on at night, then come back and listen to this in 3 months, and you'll hear, oh, he said for the day, and there's another piece. And so that's how you can kind of do this and say, oh, I want to change some of the light bulbs. What light bulbs can I change? Or should I even be using light bulbs? Should I use candlelight? Should I use no lights? What are my choices? And that's how, you start. But so amber at night, daytime is usually a little bit of a yellow or champagne-ish color, and they only block about 35 to 40% of the blue light frequencies. And that's, when I say that's okay, meaning you're supposed to have blue light. And again, all these glasses, if you go outside, you don't want the glasses in front of your eyes. Even prescription glasses like you're wearing without any blue light protection. If you go outside, those lenses block UV light. Remember, we said the UV light has a fine-tuning mechanism on your clock as well. So when you go outside and there's no UV light present because your glasses block them, the signal that you give to your clock is different. So but the listeners can come back, save this to the computer, and come back in a month or two after you've made one small change and listen again, and you'll hear another little detail. And then that's really, when I work with clients, it's lots of small changes over time, serially. If I gave you a book of the 150 things you need to do to get your health back together, you'd say, oh my God, that's so overwhelming. I can't know if I can handle that. Of course you can't. Nobody can. I didn't start by doing 100 things. I started by just putting the glasses on in front of my computer when I was working at night, finishing, some of my work, my doctor work. And I'll tell you that in 3 months, when I lost 8 pounds, all I was doing was wearing it just before bed when I was on the computer, not even all the time. And when I noticed, I checked some blood work, that my growth hormone was increased, that my testosterone was increased, that my markers of inflammation were decreased. And the only change that had occurred was putting on these light blocking goggles. It was pretty powerful. And then I realized, wow, where can this really lead if I understood how this all worked? And then I dove deep in. So start where you are. It's okay. You don't have to get it all right on the first day, but you have to start getting it right.
Prioritize sleep today or be part of the healthcare system tomorrow. And I think that's really very important message to get across, that sleep is just so crucial for cell repair. And, and the other thing, I suppose, is that you don't necessarily realize that the quality of your sleep is impacted. And so you may well think that you are having a fabulous night's sleep, and yet that your body thinks differently. And so, I think it is so important to try and tune into your body as much as you possibly can, to increase your level of awareness. And this is something that I work to help people to, tune out some of the noise and tune in to what they feel and how their bodies react to different situations, scenarios, whether it's food or light or movement or whatever it is, to really try and tune in. And so I said to my son that I was chatting with you today. He's 18 years old, and I did hear you say that technology addiction, and this is something that I was trying to avoid for so very many years. And now that he's 18, as he tells me on a regular basis, I have no control anymore. So it's over to him. But, this is so important for young people to embrace health and wellness at a time when really they couldn't care less, because it's then that the template is cut out for the future. Our future health depends on our actions through the whole of our life. And turning the clock back is all, well, we're talking clocks, aren't we? Turning the clock back is something that we kind of get to a certain age and start to think, oh, if only, or perhaps if I had, whatever. So I think keep having the conversations, I guess, and grumble on, and get some of the stick-on filters and turn down the, oh yeah, he said there's a setting, blah, 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 in the phone.
And again, the details matter. A lot of these settings are not good enough. But there's a couple of things I want to highlight that you said, which are super important. One is most people aren't aware. And yes, there's the tuning in, and that is very important, because I think there is too much signal to noise ratio in our lives, and we don't connect to ourselves and feel what, just feel the feelings in our body. But even within that, when I was practicing just standard allopathic sleep medicine, there are so many people who don't think they have a sleep problem that have severe sleep apnea. And only about half of the people with sleep apnea are even aware that they're tired during the day. So if you're not tired and you think, well, I don't have a sleep problem, I feel fine, just look at the list of medicines on your, and the diagnosis associated with your name. If there's a lot of them, then you're not fine, okay? So the answer is you're not fine. If you take no pills and you feel like a rock star, then maybe you're okay in what I'm saying here. But so that's the first part, is humans are not good at estimating the quality of something that happens in their unconscious. So you're asleep. You can't be a judge of your sleep when you're sleeping because you're not conscious of it anymore. And so that makes you impervious to being the deciding factor of whether it's good or bad. So unless you're doing some sort of sleep testing, and even if you have a sleep test that a physician orders and they say it's normal, that's how I figured this out, is that it's not normal. When you have diseases, great, we know that. But when you say you sleep terrible and the sleep test is normal, then there's a problem with the sleep test, right? We're not looking at the right parts of it. And that's how I dove into this. But the other part that you said is the children, and as a dad, this is near and dear to me as well, because I look at this next generation and it's really scary. I mean, first they have some of the worst health, and the culture of being a teenager and a young adult is so intimately connected to technology now. Yeah. I mean, when you have social media that, has streaks and you have to continue to be on it, and the psychological warfare to keep them addicted to these things, besides the fact that blue light is psychologically addictive and biochemically addictive. It seems overwhelming as a parent. But the one thing I will tell you that I've seen is that this is not good news that they're getting so sick, but the good news is that because they're getting so sick, a lot of them are kind of waking up like, what is going on? Because they don't understand. Because that when you kill Superman, it really wakes you up, right? And as a teenager, we all felt that, as you said, they feel impervious to everything and, they're superhuman. But when you make them really ill at a young age and they know they're supposed to be intuitively superhuman, and it kind of wakes them up a little bit. And so there is a young group that's kind of figuring this out and grabbing a hold of this information. And so I'd like to stay optimistic that unfortunately they're crashing faster, and that actually can initiate more change because they're going to wake up. When it happens over 40 years, you don't see the damage. In other words, blue light has been here way before we had smartphones. Just as soon as you created clothing, you change the ratios of light on your skin. Okay? As soon as we created fire, we changed the ratio of light and our hormones. And then we created electricity in the incandescent bulb, and that was really the beginning of the major changes. And so, how long has electricity been around? So this is not a new phenomenon. It just took a long time because the damage and the toxic levels were small. And so it took us 40 years to break. Now it takes us 15 years to break, 12 years to break, 10 years to break. We're being born broken. That's never been seen in human history before. So the good news is a lot of people are waking up, and parents too, with youngsters that are really ill. They want to know why. And the answer is what we've been talking about. One of the things that has occurred with the COVID and the indoor and all the online learning and such that happened is they talked about teen anxiety and depression has been off the charts. And I think most people, again, from a linear thought process, would say, well, COVID's very scary. People are dying and the kids are so scared. And let's be honest, kids are not really scared about that. I mean, yes, there are some unique kids who are going to be more emotionally connected to that kind of adult information. But mostly as a kid, when death happens, you don't really get it. So people don't realize that the constant blue light screen. I mean, kids are already on screens in, probably half the day as it is. Now, when we took the other half of the day, we've given them 24/7 exposure to one frequency spectrum of light all day long. And that changes the neurochemistry of their brain. And that in and of itself is responsible for a lot of the, depression and anxiety that we're seeing. And again, people are not looking at the screens as the cause of that. They're thinking it's situational from, this pandemic has scared the kids and they're so fearful of contact. I don't really think that's the case. And even if that is, as I said, you have a double whammy here now, because now you have a photonically based anxiety as well as an emotionally based anxiety.
Yeah. Well, I know we digress very slightly from the midlife crisis that I was having, but this is the wonderful thing about having a chat live online. We can, chew the fat and really get to the root of the matter, and so these future generations, I really do want to prevent them from ending up in a situation where life is full of illness. And like you said, it's coming around more quickly. And so anything we can do to help with that. Thank you for your time today. I've loved learning a bit more about physics than I had remembered. And, wellness in the round, in the broadest sense, to consider all the different facets of your life if you have struggles with health. And it may just be that light is playing its part, and that there are simple strategies to help you to tackle those issues. And so grab some goggles and get a better night's sleep, and feel a whole lot better. So thank you so much for your time today. I will just share that you have obviously the website that you mentioned, and you are available on LinkedIn to connect with, and Facebook also. Thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Josh. It's been great.
My pleasure. I just hope if people walk away with one thing, it's exactly how you kind of concluded, is light really shapes your life. And if you just acknowledge that one fact, that can be the seed of wellness and health in your life. The details, there's many branches, there's many complicated, growth patterns, but you can get there. It's doable. There's a lot of information on my site, and probably more to come.
Okay. Well, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.